We are back in the IOTV studio with, myself, Tim Anello, to my right is Dusty Skaggs, and a couple of guests today.
Legends.
That's right.
Legends.
On the far left is J.D. Jones and Mr. Tommy Leach. With so, you guys tell us, what is your official title with Oklahoma Self Bow Society?
I'm currently the vice president.
You're currently the vice president.
Right.
I've just been a member all my life.
Okay.
How long?
I don't know, 20-something years?
How long you been alive?
Oh, 60. Too long.
We started OJAM in 2004 and formed the Oklahoma Self Bow Society in 2009.
Okay. And how many members you all have now?
Somewhere in 350, 400 range.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
All Oklahoma residents
No,
from all over?
across the U.S. So
Right.
when people come to OJAM, they join the Self Bow Society
Okay.
and they become a member for a year. And then they get renewed, hopefully.
Oh, are we supposed to renew that?
Yes.
I thought that was a lifetime
No,
membership.
you can renew at OJAM.
Can you buy a lifetime membership?
No, you can become a master bowyer
Oh,
or a Hall of Fame member and have a lifetime membership.
I don't think I'll live that long after just building the one. So Dusty and I came out to OJAM, I guess, earlier this year for the 2023 OJAM, not a festival, Jamboree.
It's a jamboree.
Stands for Oklahoma Jamboree.
Mm-hmm.
And we had no really expectations other than when you called and asked us about, if we'd be interested in coming out, and started looking into it. And I don't know about you, Dusty, but I wasn't expecting.
I had no idea what we were getting into.
I wasn't expecting to have that much fun learning something new. I mean, it's in our wheelhouse, right? It's archery, but not in our wheelhouse of traditional is not something that I didn't grow up bow hunting at all. So, when I started bow hunting, it was with a compound bow. So learning, and I feel like what we've learned is just a fraction of what you guys know.
Mm.
One of the things I kind of wanted to start out with is what are the differences if you had to explain to somebody, because I keep calling it a longbow, but it's a self bow. So, right?
Self bow. It's built out of one piece of wood.
So is technically is a self bow different than a longbow?
A longbow and a recurve to me is a style of bow.
Okay.
So
I don't know. A self bow is where it all comes down to is where a self bow is. You make it yourself
Okay.
out of one piece of wood, just a single piece of wood, like you and Dusty made.
So
That's called a
depending
self-bow.
on the style of bow you make,
Right.
I guess technically you could make a recurve,
Mhm.
and it would be a self bow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So the bows that we're making out there, those would be more along the lines of a longbow.
More of an American flat bow.
Okay, an American flat bow.
Flat bow. Yes. Yeah.
From a flat piece of wood.
Well, mine wasn't flat.
Well, mine, yeah.
Preferably flat on the back
Mhm.
Right.
instead of crowned. But
So is that where the name comes from? And I'm not asking this rhetorical because I honestly still learning. A flat bow, American flat bow is called that because of the flat belly.
the flatness and the width. Yeah, more of a flat bow. When a lot of people talk about flat bows, they think if you think of a flat bow, you think of 1.5 inches wide to 2 inches wide flat bow, and the belly's more flat. Where the bows that I build and Tommy build, they're more not a flat bow, they're more radiused.
That rounded.
They're radiused. They're more aesthetic looking than to me. You get pros and cons on flat bows and radius, flat and the bellies of them, but it's just a personal preference. But to me, it seems like it's so much. And y'all seen it. I mean, there was not much that we had to do to tiller your bows because once you.
I disagree.
You're right.
Yeah, that's because I had to do much. That's because I done most of the. No.
Exactly.
Yeah. No.
What you meant to say was that we They didn't have to do much.
Well, what happens is on the radius, you follow a taper, where on a flat bow, you're mainly, a lot of times they will use gauges. They'll use a tapering, a caliper to measure the thickness, in different intervals of the limbs. But on a radius belly, to me, there's so much. I don't know. That's just my personal preference. But it's also called a flat bow.
Not to get too technical though, but is that why you were using your index finger when you're going down to try to find the center of that bow? Because it's not straight. I mean, if you look at that bow like head on, that bow's down side to side, but you were using your index finger to follow that to find the center.
Well, what I was doing was actually measuring the thickness from the back so that we could trim with a bandsaw, trim off the extra wood.
Okay.
But so the first thing you do is you follow a growth ring along the back because that's the integrity of it. But then you also need to follow the grain of how that limb tapers. So if there's a knot in it or something, that bow is going to wiggle around that.
Yeah,
Right.
like water flowing, and that's when we say grain. Grain is when you're looking at a tree, the up and down. That's what grows. That's the grain of it. Is when you take the bark off, you see all them serrations. That's the grain. In the more desirable ones are the ones that's got crooked. They call them snake bows, character bows. That's a highly desirable stave. But then that's a whole lot harder to build because you have to. It's a freehand. You freehand around any knots or you cannot cut through that and make a straight bow like yours on a character bow. It'll crack at them spots where it goes out of it, where it goes off.
It actually shear off.
Yeah. So, but that's how the tree grew with the grain. So.
So when we got to the event and there was a lot going on, especially with us and filming, at the beginning of the event, do you go over this stuff with those that are interested in the different types of bows? Is there a sort of a
Tutorial?
Yeah.
No, not really. Just when I get a student in, I ask them, one, are they a compound shooter typically, or have they shot traditional archery with recurves and longbows? Because that makes a difference. Because somebody may be shooting a 70-pound compound and think that they can pull a 70-pound self bow, and they might pull it, but it's not going to be fun to shoot.
I figured that out real quick.
So
yeah?
One of the things that I really like to do is, if somebody's shooting 70, let's put them in a 50-pound bow. And that way it's fun for them to shoot, because it doesn't do any good for them to go hang it on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you pick up so much bad habits, and I see it all the time on YouTube or on deal. Get a bow where you can pull back and anchor, 27, 28 inches, and not where you're struggling. If you're struggling, you're never going to shoot the bow right. You want the bow to be able to pull it back and anchor and shoot. I mean, I was shooting 58 pounds until last year. Now I'm at 45 pounds. So that's just because of some injuries, but I couldn't handle 58 pounds.
Yeah.
But and I used to shoot a 70-pound recurve back in 1984 and 85. I mean, but I would not recommend. The most bows that I sell, they're 40 to 45 pounds. You don't see the 65, 70-pound bows. It's just a rare individual that wants something like that.
Is there going to be a huge difference in arrow speed, say between 50 and 60-pound self bow? Are you going to see a huge difference in arrow speed, or is it?
No, not really, because you
Or is it going to depend a lot on the draw length and all that, just like a normal?
Your accessories, your arrows, if you're shooting a 60-pound, you might want to shoot 600 grains. If you're shooting 50 pounds, you might want to be shooting 525 grain arrows. That's with the broadheads on. It makes up for the difference in the speed, 10 pounds of difference. And also it's the string type of materials that I was talking about, Tommy. I strictly use fast flight or something that doesn't stretch, where a B50 stretches, where a fast flight doesn't stretch, and the bows, especially a self bow, it'll shoot a whole lot quicker for me with a fast flight because it doesn't stretch. It just
I just didn't know if there was a big benefit to
Not really.
having a
Kind of rule of thumb is for a well-made self bow is 100 feet per second plus the draw weight. So if you're shooting a 50-pound bow, 150 feet per second is a good quality bow. It's kind of a general rule of thumb.
And that's good because most self bows are quiet.
yeah.
The deer's not
Yeah.
going to jump the string as much.
I was
mean,
really
Well, and
impressed
you're-
with how quiet they were.
And you're shooting a generally a heavier arrow.
Yeah.
Altogether, broadhead. All put together, you're shooting quite a bit heavier arrow than you would out of a compound. Yeah.
That and wood. That's why I've always shot wood with all the bows that I've made, because wood it absorbs energy quicker than a hollow shaft because it's solid and it's quieter. A wooden arrow will shoot quieter than an aluminum arrow or a carbon arrow.
No kidding. The material of the arrow,
Yeah, makes a
not the
difference.
fletching, the broadhead, but the material of the shaft itself will make a difference in the loudness of
Yeah,
the.
by my experience, it will.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Especially if you shoot the wrong mismatched aluminum arrow, it's going to get a twang.
Oh, yeah, that
being
makes
too
sense,
light.
yeah.
Or a wood arrow, it might have a little bit of a twang, but it's going to correct a little quicker because it has memory. Wood
You
has
shoot
has memory.
a cedar shaft.
Cedar shaft, I think mine might be Douglas fir. It's wood arrows.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier. You shoot cedar shaft
Hickory.
and
I'm
or
shooting,
hickory
I'm shooting the Douglas fir, cedar, and then hickory as well.
and a 5/16.
5/16 or 11/32 diameter shaft, and I shoot 56 pounds.
You're still pretty strong, man.
I'm old man.
That 50 pounds.
He's
It's
old.
hard to pull.
Old man strong.
When you're not used to it.
Yeah.
But like if you shoot 70 pounds, I don't know what compounds there are nowadays, but is it 50% breakover still? So you're not,
On the let off?
is it more? Yeah.
Oh, you can get up to 90% let off.
Okay. It's been so long since I shot a compound. I didn't,
But you still got to pull. I mean, you still got to break it
at
over.
at one point, it's closer to 70 pounds. It's
Yeah.
going to be right here instead of back here, like
Yeah.
on a recurve or longbow. You're holding it all.
There's
Yeah.
there's a long discussion there of whether or not that let off is better for you or not, holding true. Because personally, on a 90% let off, it's almost like it doesn't keep me solid.
Yeah, it's too loose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have a 70% let off, it's a harder to hold,
Yeah.
but that tension
Yeah.
almost keeps you more solid stance.
I think that's where I find where my inconsistency comes from shooting a compound bow. I've trained myself over the years to not keep that back tension, and that's where my inconsistency comes from.
I actually shoot a heavier bow better than I do a lightweight bow. Something 45,
You can get your-
45 pounds. I don't shoot as well.
You get your hands off the string sometimes quicker, better, smoother with the heavier bow. If you
Oh,
shoot-
it doesn't have a tendency to roll, or is that what you mean?
It's got more.
Hang up.
It's just more pressure.
Yeah,
You know?
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's it's yeah. There's so many parts of traditional archery that go back to I don't know how many thousands of years. Our ancestors, that is just so interesting. I didn't start bow hunting until we started this show. I'd had a bow.
Yeah.
I bought one. My girlfriend in high school had a family member that had a pawn shop, and I, bought one and got some arrows and started shooting it, and quickly gave up just because I didn't have really any instruction. I got good with it. I could hit what I was aiming at, but I couldn't have told you if you asked me what my draw length was,
Yeah.
what arrows. I don't know what bow it was. Didn't know anything. I just started shooting whatever it was set at, and to spend so many years now archery hunting, and then finally go back to the basics is such I don't know, maybe it's just me. I thought it was just really intriguing to start to learn this and listen to you guys talk about things that I still can't wrap my head around.
Well, we've been doing it since the early 80s. I mean, my father-in-law, ex-father-in-law, he had an archery shop, and that's where I started at in the late 70s. And then I got into compounds because he sold compounds. So, and then I stopped shooting compounds, I think in 1983 or 84. That's when I got into, well, my first recurve was a bighorn, was a Fred Asbill bighorn takedown.
So how many, and have you only shot, when did you start shooting? When did you start?
I started in '83. The guy that was my best
you got
man.
into archery before that, though, right?
No,
You didn't start shooting a bow at all till '83.
Right.
How old are you?
I'll be 62 this week.
62.
All right.
So you were
I was in college.
15. Oh, you were in college?
Yeah, I
Okay.
was 22.
I flunked science, so forget my math.
I started with a compound, and one of the guys I worked with harassed me because I shot training wheels, and he was shooting a Browning recurve, and then I'd killed a few deer with it.
What are you referring to as training wheels? Compound?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we always called it back then, training wheel.
It is. It's I guess it would be sort of like thinking of a crossbow to a compound
I'd
as
buy
sort
that.
of a compound to a recurve
Right.
or a self bow.
Well, I went from a compound to a recurve and had some success there. So the next challenge was the longbow, and then the next challenge was the self bow. I'd started flint napping, and that just kind of fell into do the whole primitive.
See, I just think you're setting the bar like really high for yourself, because I'm thinking like you needed a challenge in the '80s. When I think of when I started deer hunting in high school or before then, I'm hunting out of a strong built climbing tree stand and a training wheel bow. I struggled. I mean, I was doing good to shoot a button buck or a doe, like.
Well,
yeah,
and
You've got to see some of the tree stands we used
Yeah.
back in the late 70s and 80s.
They're made out of wood.
Baker was a climbing tree stand that was real popular back then. Baker was, and it's some people some of my friends tried to copy, but the Bakers, and it was catastrophes. It's
look at the deer populations though back in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, you might go all season and never see a buck.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Again, I mean,
And
crazy.
so
Yeah, it's totally different nowadays. I mean,
Do you think the deer population is that much stronger, or do you think that our ability to hunt is that much better?
I think the population's way up from where we
think-
were. When
I
I
think it
first
is.
started hunting, Oklahoma might kill 20,000 deer a year, and we've been over 100,000 for years now.
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah, if you got to see a buck, it was something.
That's because all of us hunters are just wiping
Yeah.
out the population, aren't we?
Wiping all them does out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We well, I won't go down that road.
No, but it's
All the antis, but yeah, it's neat to see that come up. And okay, so you were in your college when you got into archery,
Right.
and when did you get into archery? Right
I
after
got
baby
into
food,
archery.
solid food and
No,
archery?
it was like 1979. My first wife, her dad had an archery shop. Bill Snyder had an archery shop called Blade and Broadhead in Ada, Oklahoma, and he got me into it. And he let me work there. I made arrows. I cut arrows for him, waited on customers, and he started it in the mid, maybe 77, and then he sold the business in the mid 90s. So I worked there for many. That's kind of where I learned from was Bill Snyder. He, archery. But then I had other friends back in the mid 80s, 83, 84, that started shooting recurves, and I was kind of one of the first. We had a club at Stratford called Lost Trail Bow Hunters, and I was one of the first ones to take a recurve. And I believe now that same club, which is called Stratford Sportsman Club, I think it's mainly more of a traditional now.
Club?
Traditional recurve longbows, because back in the mid 80s, it was all compounds. Yeah. I mean, and in the mid 80s, it started turning to the recurves and longbows because it's a more simple. I don't know. It's a challenge. And it is a challenge. In 3D shoots, I hadn't been to one since the early '90s, but I used to go all over and go 3D shoots with your longbow and recurves. And awesome.
So did you guys come from hunting families?
Not archery.
I did. I grew up bird hunting,
Yeah.
and I shot skeet, tournament skeet, all through high school and then college.
So did you have brothers and uncles and dad that they hunt before your?
My dad and granddad both deer hunted.
Yeah.
They started deer hunting again. They'd hunted in the 50s. And then when I started deer hunting in college, they started back. But we quail hunted, pheasant hunted, and then I got into waterfowl big in the first few years of college.
Was it a hard transition from bird hunting to sitting still and being quiet deer hunting?
Yeah.
I feel you. I just really when I got into hunting was because of my girlfriend's best friend, her boyfriend who went to a different school, he hunted. And by default, I had to hang out with him, and they had bird dogs, and that's when I got into hunting in high school, and it was all waterfowl and upland, and just loved it, and really didn't do any deer hunting for the most part until we started this show, and it was a struggle for me, especially. A little bit of the ADD and sitting still. Yeah, I know,
it's a whole world of difference.
Yeah.
Archery, it's
and that's with it. Compound and nowadays with everything that we have, traditional archery, you've got to be that much closer. So yeah, man, it's a
sacrifice. I mean, I know a lot of people that, when you start shooting a recurve or a longbow, you set up different than when you shot a compound. You'll set up 15, 20 yards shot, or a compound 30, 40, 50 yards. And I know a lot of people that wants to shoot a recurve and longbow, but they don't want to give it up because what happens if that big buck comes out at 45 yards? And I understand that. I understand. It's a personal thing to do, but it's a big step to put down the
training
wheels.
wheels.
Yeah, the compound. It is a big step.
Yeah.
Because I've missed my share of deer, and thinking, holy cow! Because buck fever is if you have a big buck and all you have is a stick and string, you got to get your mind right.
It's interesting the levels of whatever you want to call it, but when you look at gun hunting and then stepping down to what we consider archery, traditional or compound bow, and we sort of have that same mentality of, man, it's going to suck when he's just out there at 60 or 70 yards, and you fight a gun. We say it all the time. How many times have we said, could have killed that deer if we had a gun?
Yeah.
And then now, you're looking at, I could have killed that deer if I had a compound.
Yeah. The thing about it is, when I first started and got head over into it, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about, well, what if it's at 40? You try to be. I think it kind of tries to make you be a better hunter.
It does.
For me, because
it
makes
to be.
Yeah, you have to get closer
to excel at it.
Yeah.
Or,
Tommy,
You have to play the wind and things so much differently shooting traditional equipment, whether it's a self bow or,
You had said something to me. You had to hit a certain target so many times before you're going to go hunting. Was it the target 100 times or the target 50 times consistently, or was it a pie plate at 20 yards? Like you kind of gave me some kind of.
To me, I need to be 80, 90% at whatever effective range. And I won't hardly shoot any animal over 18 yards.
Okay.
And most of my shots are between 10 and 12 yards.
That's about the average is 18 yards for archery. It used to be. It was like 18 yards for a shot. So
if he's at 20, you're going to let him walk.
I have.
2 yards?
Yep.
6 feet.
I believe him. I believe him.
Wow. I say that. There's 6 feet make a big difference.
Well, you look at how the animal is reacting too. Is he nervous? Is he calm? He's sitting there feeding and just relaxed. That makes a difference on what the animal does if he hears that bow.
Yeah, you see that all the time on these hunting shows. In most of the time, I'll try to shoot a deer with it just like natural instead of doing or hey or holler or whistle, and they're alert. And then when they're alert, you shoot, and I hear that twing, and they duck a foot, you know. And so I hardly ever stop them. But
Everybody knows you're supposed to go, map.
That's right.
Yeah,
Come on, JD.
It can be, you know, if they're walking.
I like the grunt.
I've stopped, you know, a lot of times I'll stop one if it's walking just to make sure. But what I didn't pay attention to in the beginning that I found was bad, was counterproductive, was stopping them before you're truly ready to shoot. And I think if you're going to stop one, as soon as it stops, you should be ready to let her fly.
Yeah,
right.
have the
Because
pin
the
on it.
longer you wait, the more nervous that deer's getting, and the better chance of screwing that shot up.
You see it a lot on hunting shows.
Oh, I mean, I still make that mistake.
Yeah.
I'll think I'm settled in, and for whatever reason, once I stop them, I find myself taking too long.
Yeah.
It can.
Well, and you're not going to hold that self bow back like that.
Yeah.
So
No.
you better be ready. And that's one thing about making sure they're nice and relaxed and just
Yeah.
Yeah,
Feeding along.
pick a spot. That's the thing. Pick a spot. Burn a hole in its shoulder. You know, it's just like throwing a baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of people, they'll aim, you know, but I was always the one where I always was looking at the spot and pull back. I never even look at my arrow or nothing. It's more of a true instinctive. It's kind of like throwing a baseball.
That's how I've tried to describe it, just because of the fact that I've tried years ago. The first guy that had a recurve and was shooting it, and he's like, here, and explaining to me how to aim with the tip of the arrow when you come to, and I couldn't, and really I don't think I ever really got it until started bow fishing, and then once I picked up a recurve again, it just became a lot more natural. But I can't pick something. I can't aim, if that makes sense. It's you just kind of tell. But it takes a lot of shooting to do that. I mean, you got to shoot a bunch.
But hand-eye
And right now, I
coordination.
wouldn't feel comfortable hunting with it, just because I haven't shot it enough recently to just something step out, gauge the distance, and draw back and shoot. If I had 5 practice shots first, sure.
And Tommy will vouch for this. The number one thing when shooting a longbow, recurve, anything, if you're not using a release, is your anchor point. That's the most important thing. You'll never be a good shot if you don't come back every
gotta
time.
be consistent.
Every time. None of this floating stuff. Consistently every time, the same spot every time.
And that's where draw length and draw weight is very
Weight,
important. If you're
exactly.
fighting that weight and not coming back to that same spot every time,
Yeah.
I got to adjust my bow.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
Sand it down.
Well, and
It
it's a
ain't
lot
hard.
lot different shooting in the backyard in a T-shirt than all
wow.
bundled up in December.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
True. So how many bows would you, Tommy, have you made since? When did you make your first one?
About 90.
So
1990.
what transpired to where you were sitting down deciding to stand on a piece of wood and make a bow?
That guy.
Yeah.
I'd went over to his house. I had some turkey feathers, and he was going to help me grind them, show me how he processed them. And he was working on a bow that was going to Germany, I believe. He's in Germany or Italy.
Might have been.
And he took me in and showed me all his self bows, and that was just kind of the next step for me.
Were you guys pretty good friends prior to that?
I met,
Yeah.
I met
Oh,
JD in like 84
Oh, okay.
when I first started. I bought my first bow from his ex-father-in-law.
That's when I was born.
84.
You bet.
Kid.
And
No, I tell you what, we from the archery shop, that has been one of the best things it's ever happened to me is because it got me into archery. You know, it got me, which I never was on to party and clubs, stuff like that. But it's such a clean sport, and then traditional, OSS, Oklahoma Self Society, 99% of the people that's involved in this is just down to earth, great people.
So
I mean, it's just
absolutely. There's
yeah.
a point that I'm going to make here shortly about that, and so so to get to that point, JD, you how long? When did you start making bows?
87, 88, right in that area.
And it was what got you to the point where you thought, this would be fun. Let me make a bow.
Well, I went to the.
You said your father-in-law makes them.
No, he didn't make them. No,
Okay.
his shop was mainly a pro
Just an
shop,
archery shop.
archery pro shop, and he had some recurves, but they were the cheaper recurves, nothing cuts, nothing. Well, he did have at one time he did bring the Brackenberries, you know, and that was a custom-made bow, but his is more compounds. But I wanted something different. I don't know. I just love the looks of recurves. Like I said, I've had so many recurves in the past, you know, since then, collecting. I used to collect recurves, bighorn recurves, Rocky Mountain recurves. Then they don't even make them anymore. But I was
You were collecting them before you were shooting them?
No, I collected them back in the 90s, and after I got into making bows myself, you know, it got me into wanting the bows I had back in the mid 80s.
So what got you? Like I said, what transpired when you made your first bow? How'd that come about?
Going to these shoots that we had started being traditional, and there was a guy in Sulphur named Leon Blagg, and I seen some of his bows, and I'm like, he had some with catfish skin on them, sinew, and gorgeous. The guy was a master bowyer, and I seen some of him, and he kind of lit the fire on wanting me to build a bow. And then back then you didn't have YouTube, we didn't have the internet to like you do now. You can just practically go. There's so many great bowyers out there now. Because there's so much.
Let me tell you something. Doing it once, I can tell you, it would be very hard to never done it before. Mm-hmm. Watch videos and learn how to do it. I think it would be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's possible. It's not impossible, but it would be very hard not being in person with someone
hands on.
Yeah.
That was the same way with when I started making strings. They're like, yeah, do this, twist it away, pull it to you. The best way to do it is to go watch somebody and do it yourself. Hands-on experience. That's the best teacher of them all.
So how many bows, Tommy, do you think you've made over the last,
somewhere
30 years?
Yeah, 125 to 135, somewhere in there.
And
it's picked up over the last few years. Before I was making a couple a year.
Are you most of those made for yourself, or are you still?
No, most of them are for clients.
Yeah.
I try to build one a year for myself, and once I kill an animal with it, I generally retire it.
Really?
With exceptions of bow I've been shooting for the last 3 years. So
you just like it that much?
Yeah.
And
as a baleen bellied bow, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a special bow.
It's a what?
Baleen.
Baleen
bellied.
Yeah.
Baleen comes out of a whale's mouth.
Okay.
And it's like horn, but the only people that can sell it legally are the Eskimos.
Did you catch that whale yourself?
No, my son and
it's keratin is also like your fingernail.
Yeah.
Huh.
They own
just
a
like
coffee
antelope.
house in
Really?
Denali, Alaska, and my son ran into a gentleman trying to sell some of this, and we made a deal.
That's
cool.
Really cool.
You can still buy baleen, but it has to be
Etched.
It has to be scrimshawed or etched. That's how I got my couple of pieces. Is they scrimshawed a scene on it, and that's what they do a lot in Alaska. That's how they make some of their money. Is
souvenirs.
They pick up that sinew.
You can't buy it just fresh, like untouched.
No, it has to have something. This guy had just carved his initials in it.
Like legally, you can't buy raw baleen.
Right.
No, it's
okay.
No, it's a protected thing for Alaskans can.
Alaskans.
It's kind of like tusks or
yeah.
like okay.
But it's called a frond, Frond. Frond. Baleen is a frond, and it's like it's got hair. You need to Google it, and in the Fred Bear Museum they used to have in Gainesville, they had one. It was like 12 feet long, and it's just beautiful. Yes, and it was about 12 inches wide, and it's got hair. And that, just look at the whale. Is it a sperm whale? I can't remember exactly
I
what.
think it's a sperm whale and a blue whale.
That's what that's what filters. All
Filtered
that plankton comes in,
Okay.
and the baleen is what's in their mouth and what filters the
in rows
shrimp
like
in.
gill plates.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
I somewhat know what you're talking about. So, how many bows have you built then over the years?
I haven't ever.
Probably 1,000.
No, it's probably 500 or
500.
yeah.
500.
So, Tommy, do you have a company that people look you up other than word of, or is it just
It's
completely word of mouth?
Word of mouth. I bought the Stillwater self bow for the domain,
Okay.
and I haven't ever built a website. I own the domain.
But that's everybody knows you from Stillwater Self Bows.
Right.
I mean, yeah. That's,
And then Facebook,
Yeah.
social media stuff. So.
And JD, looking you up was somewhat hard. It's like you scrubbed the internet.
well,
What was the name?
Pinnacle bow making.
But
My
has
bows-
it always been that?
No, it was Genesis. My first back in the 80s and the 90s was Genesis Self Bow Company.
Okay. Because
Genesis
I could find some of that, and people,
would say, "Hey, that's Joe Don Jones."
yeah, you've
made
got
Genesis.
a name
Yeah,
for yourself.
But Pinnacle, I changed that about 7, 8 years ago.
I've got you on Facebook.
Yeah,
now.
Pinnacle Bow Making.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a group on Facebook. I don't have no website.
So, Tommy, you have to get into it a little bit so you can hear you better. He's not going to, JD doesn't like talking about himself and what he's done. So, he's fairly well known in the self bow world.
He is probably one of the very best bowyers in the U.S. and probably worldwide.
And so, that being said, you made a comment earlier about how not the industry, but the people in this self bow, not industry. What word am I thinking about? This community
Group.
They're just the most helpful, humble people. This was our first year to go to OJAM, and meeting Tommy and not having any idea who was who, and just sort of got thrown in, and you had a lot going on, and we had a lot going on, and you were just like, once we got to Staves, I turned around and Tommy's gone, and it was like, all right, he said, just go find somebody, and so
Make sure they got one of them yellow ribbons on their hat
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
and it truly was one of the neatest group of people. It is a true community, and I know we saw a small part of the weather was kind of sketchy.
That hurt the cold.
But the everybody, whether they were first time like us or come to find out, one of the most well known self bowyer.
Bowyers.
It just everybody was absolutely the nicest, most helpful people. Had no idea for the longest time when Tommy, when you introduced us to JD, and I sort of blew through it when you said he was your mentor at the time. You said, "Here, JD will help you with this. He knows a lot. He was my mentor." And so for the next day and a half that we sat down, and you spent the next day and a half with us and helping us create an actual bow, because I think without your help, we'd still be there working on it. But
Well, you built Dusty's, right?
yeah,
And the handle.
I heard Tommy say that he was his mentor, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna find that guy. I'm gonna sneak in, and I'm just gonna be like, hey, bro,
Ran up to me and put his arm around me. I didn't even know the guy.
Yeah.
No.
But it was. I guess my point is it, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it was like you're the sort of the epitome of, or you too, of everybody there, because there was no grandiose, there was no showboating. You weren't up on it. Like, you never said, oh, I've done this and I know what I'm talking about. And it was always just the most helpful. Hey, well, let's try to do this, or just a very helpful technique or a helpful way of, or a nice approach, humble approach to the helpfulness. I guess what I'm trying to say.
I'd say this too, Tim. Like, we were there for, 3 days?
Mm-hmm.
There was never one single time where I sat there and thought, man, what do I do next? Because even if you weren't there or JD wasn't there, there was somebody walking by going, hey, what do you got there?
Yeah.
Let me get my hands on that. See what you're doing. And they were there. They were helping, and they did that to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just us.
Well, one of the big things that we've tried to do, and you notice the different color of hats.
You bet.
Those of us who've built a lot of bows are yellow hats, and part of our development is now you guys have built one bow, come build another one, and we're going to put a red hat on you.
Really?
Oh, Lord.
Well,
Because
yeah, it
because
just
now
depends
you
on
kn-
your experience.
Yeah. Now, after you've built a few, you know how to chase a ring. So you can tell somebody how to run a draw knife after you've built a few. And then
I like your confidence.
They're going to put you at the tiller and tree next year, Tim. You're just going to
no,
sit there.
so we won't put you at the tiller tree until the
Set him
second.
in the bandsaw area.
yeah.
But the best way to learn is to teach.
I cut that in two, Joe.
I thought those that couldn't do taught.
That's why you use the bandsaw. Bandsaw and belt sander.
But our red hats are guys that have came through and have built a couple of bows.
Okay.
And we're developing them to take over for us. They're the ones that started this 20 years ago. We're getting older and tired. I can't stand up for 4 days straight.
Oh no, I don't go there to build bows and stuff. I go there to
Well, I'm coming next
to
year.
visit,
So.
but I still love to get involved.
Right.
You know, I love that. You know, and the flint napping and it was kind of an off year this year, the crowd, because of the coldness. The weather was frigid. I mean, y'all, that wind from the north blowing off that lake, yeah, it wasn't fun.
But how many? Do you have a board
We do.
of?
Board of directors.
You don't call it OJAM. It's Oklahoma Self Bow Society.
Oklahoma Self Bow Society.
Yeah.
OJAM is our big event.
That's the event.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I think you were telling me. So you're the current
vice president.
vice president.
I'll serve another year as vice president, and then I'll roll in to be president. So the way our bylaws are structured, we elect a vice president. He serves that for 2 years, and then the next 2 years, he's president or she, and then we have a new vice president come in. And that way we have a good transition
Sure.
of what's going on.
Keep fresh ideas.
Yeah, we've had great ones though. It's Jason Grace. Is he the president this year?
Jason's president.
I mean, just guys. I have never been a board member, but I just never was really, between my business and jobs and stuff like that. And it's more my fault, but they have done a great job. OSS it's an amazing what they started.
Yeah. Just couldn't believe, again, and I know I said it a bunch of times, but it ran smooth. Everybody that was a part of the yellow hat or red hat, they were always walking around, so helpful. People that had been there, that were just there again, building another bow, and we had several people, in our tent that I'm sure there were a bunch of times where we looked like we didn't know what we were doing, and had somebody that was just there as a attendee come up and ask, hey, can we help you or whatever. There was a guy that
Tommy said people come from all over the country.
Oh,
He ain't lying. Because I sat down next to a guy and started just working the knife on the bow, and I looked next to him like, this guy ain't from here. He's from Utah.
Yeah.
And building a bow he can go elk hunting with. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We
really
generally have
awesome.
12 or 13 states represented.
Yeah.
And we've had them from New Jersey, Florida to California. Come
No
in.
kidding.
Oregon. So
How many are they volunteers, I guess we'll call them?
Yep.
This is because they're not paid position, I'm assuming.
No, nobody's paid.
So how many volunteers are associated with?
We have a board that's president, vice president, a secretary, a treasurer, an event coordinator. We have a chaplain. That's kind of the core board. We have a membership coordinator, and then he has a group. Originally, we had it broke up in quadrants, where I-40 and I-35 divided the state. We had reps from each quadrant of the state, and we've kind of taken and let those people work under the membership coordinator to help get words out and stuff.
Okay.
And then we have all kinds of volunteers to help with concessions, registration, and then obviously all the teachers. You know, you saw our camp. I know you guys wandered around and looked at some of the others, but we had 3 full camps
Yeah.
going, and we had like probably 75 to 80 students building bows. And then we had another guy that just did heat corrections, and he was way overworked. Because some of the wood, you can heat it and bend it and straighten it up a little bit.
I think you straightened.
Yeah, we had to
Dusty's
straighten
a little
yours.
bit, didn't you?
Somebody's we straightened.
I think it was. I think Dusty.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
mine.
it had a hump in it, and I heated it up and straightened it.
That's right.
It had a hinge look in it, kind of. So we.
So how many events do you have in a year?
So we have OJAM, and then we have a members camp out in June, generally Father's Day weekend,
Okay.
that we bring our power tools out and just, it's more relaxing. People work on bows, and we do a big potluck dinner. We just had our shoot. We had the Oklahoma Softbow Society Championship out with Crowder Lake.
Okay.
We did that 2 weeks ago. We'll have a shoot or a hunt the second weekend of October up at Call Lake. And then,
Y'all's had that for quite a while, haven't?
yeah. And we've had it at a couple of other places, but
Yeah.
Call seems to be a good one.
What is it? So everybody you get together at all share camp together and then hunt from camp.
We do Ponca Bowman, allow us to use their facility.
Yep.
So we have primitive camping there, and we'll do potluck dinners and then hunt the Call Wildlife Management Area.
Oh, nice.
And then in February, first weekend of February, we have our annual banquet where we'll do auctions and raffles and have a speaker come in and
Yeah,
talk
that's
what our-
that's
JD and
banquet's
I
awesome.
both
Yeah.
have been speakers at our banquet.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Is that at a different location each year, or is it?
The last couple of years we've held in Newkirk.
Okay.
Previously we'd held it at Sooner Legends in Norman, and we just got really good deal to where we can do it up there and raise a little money that funds everything.
So you have a couple of shoots a year, and then the hunt, and
Basically just the one shoot, and then we set targets at OJAM.
Yeah, OJAM is always the third weekend in March. It's always the last weekend of spring break.
okay.
This year is the 18th or 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, seemed like, of this year. Because I got there on the 18th, which is a Friday, I think. And then Friday and Saturday, I was there. So,
Okay.
but it's like I said, that we had one at one time called Mojam. Missouri had one, and this is kind of a takeoff of it, but that has grown to be larger than Mojam. So I think OJAM is the largest bow making event in the United States.
No kidding.
Yes.
And it's so, but it's not just bow making. I mean, as we saw, and it's really cool. It's one of those events that
I saw a guy cooking a beaver.
I think
So
he
it's
was-
more than bow making.
I think he was more about getting the hide.
Cooking beaver.
I
I don't think
I don't know.
I'd eat.
You tried the sandwich. Was it good?
yeah,
You
damn
ate
good.
a beaver sandwich?
You bet.
Oh, my God.
But it's one of those events that it's hard to see it all
Yeah.
in those 3 days. We were so focused on getting our bows done that we really, I think, missed out, and we'll have a lot more fun the next several years.
Yeah, not as pressured.
Yeah, knowing
Yeah.
what we're doing, being able to get it done in a little quicker, and then being able to go see because
Well, you'll be busy because you're going to be wearing a red hat.
Yeah.
well, there are going to be a lot of disappointed folks.
I would say that though too, like a family that didn't know if they were going to do it or not, or if they don't want to build a bow, or if they do, you come out next year and just walk around for a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Go visit each camp and go watch
It
the
was-
nappers. Go try a
probably-
beaver sandwich. You know,
Probably 10 or 12 years ago, we did have a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah.
And this year we had 800 people come through. We had over 1,800 people come through. But we had a lot of those folks coming in just to see what was going on.
yeah, you can camp.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting to people. I mean, it's, because it's different.
And
And like I said, it's a pure, just it's out of
We've got
pure
the bow making, and then you've got you have a napping competition, so they're napping their broadheads out of whatever material. But besides the competition, there's instructional classes or
it's pretty casual with
Yeah.
the flint nappers. There's some really good, highly experienced. One of the Cherokee National Treasures generally comes, and he's flint napper.
Really?
He's got stuff in the Smithsonian. He does demos at the Smithsonian. He's awesome.
Crazy.
And the talent that we have across the state is phenomenal. We've got some of the, in my opinion, some of the best flint nappers around too.
really. I've messed. You find stuff on elk hunts and tried to just mimic how they would get to an edge, and that's another one of those. I'll have to focus on the bow first. Let me get that down, and then. But yeah, watching those guys. I think the last day we walked over there, and I think the competition was over, but they were still sitting around and doing that, and that's that's one of those things.
That competition's actually off of a toilet tank as well. It's called Thunder Chirp.
So what
The ceramic from a toilet tank.
is what they have to use?
Yes, we take an old toilet and sit out there, and they get to break off a piece of it, and they have 1 hour to build a point.
No,
Yeah,
That's
that's the competition.
crazy.
That porcelain is man. You
It's
think
like a
that'd be
razor blade.
and it breaks just as well as whatever obsidian or
Chirp. Yep.
there's all kinds of different rocks that flint nappers use.
yeah, but porcelain
Yeah.
is man made, right?
I mean, they use pop bottle, Coke bottles,
No kidding.
Oh yeah, there's insulators. The insulators on the old
Yeah.
telephone poles. I think Ishii was the one that he did that.
Yep.
The Indian back in, I don't know, 20s or whatever.
And then there's seminars scheduled throughout each day,
Yes.
right? For making string.
Yeah,
I don't know. You tell me.
Heat bending.
rawhide.
Handle wraps. Rawhide.
Handle. Yeah, like the handle. I done a handle wrap for you.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
Tip overlays. I did a demo on how to process snake skins.
That's another. So there's just one of another million examples of learning stuff. Snake skin, putting it on the belly,
On the back,
on the
part that's away from you.
okay. So that the belly, the flat part, that's another thing that confused me.
That confuses a lot of people when they first
Terminology.
get into that.
Because
Yeah,
you would think the flat part would be the belly.
yeah.
Just think about your body. As you bend, which way do you bend? You bend over.
Yeah.
Your back is the part that's away.
Well, that's true. And my back's a lot flatter than my belly too. So there you go. That would make a lot more
So
sense.
you've got a crowned belly.
Yeah,
But yeah, the fact that when
kind of radiused.
you put that snake skin on there, it's not all the scales come off, right? You were
Right.
saying that
you take all the scales off.
because they're just basically transparent. It's the skin that
They're kind of translucent, but if you put finish over them, they'll create a dark spot.
wait, if you put finish over them before you take them off.
Yes. So
Really?
the coloration is actually in the skin itself, not in the scale.
Yeah, you want to glue the skins on, be it copperheads or a rattlesnake or whatever. And you let it dry, and then you get masking tape or 2-inch masking tape and put on the back and rub it with a spoon, and you pull it towards the tail, not towards the head, or sometimes it would rip the skin, and that's how. And then I used a copper brush, and it gets all the scales off. Yeah, they just once it's dry, you can use your fingernails and they come off.
I'll get it out in the sunlight so you can see them.
Yeah, and then you can use whatever skin finish you want.
And that's, I guess, what is so intriguing to me. For anybody who's ever liked to put together a puzzle or play with Lincoln Logs or just build something, the fact that there are literally limitless number of ways to build a bow. I mean, your creativity can go forever. The tip overlays, the different materials that you guys were talking about, the colorations of the bows. The guy that was used ammonia to
stain it.
Ammonia staining it. I tempted fate a little bit and used a torch to colorize mine.
But if you notice, if you walk around and see, and you take your bow and you walk around and see everybody's, there's never no two bows the same.
You could walk through a.
That's what's so unique about it.
You could walk through a trade show, a modern trade show, and if all the archers brought their bows, there might be 20 different bows between everybody. All the compound bows. I mean, you might have some guys carrying some old ones, but they're all going to look. You got the major names, right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about recurves and long bows, just self bows, traditional bows in general, it's crazy.
Yeah.
There's none of them even look remotely close.
Especially Osage, because each tree is different. That's what I love about it. Each tree is.
I didn't even think about from the very beginning. How many different types of wood can you use?
Yeah. I mean, of course, we think Osage is king, but there's black locust in Oklahoma. There's hickory. But Osage orange is oak gold, is what we call it.
Yeah.
But you have your other guys from the Northwestern, which is a wood, it's real popular, called yew wood. It's a conifer. It's a very, very, pretty close to being Osage. It's not near as tough because it's a soft wood.
Okay.
Osage, I mean, a lot of times when I get done hunting, I'll just toss it off out of my tree.
Yeah, so Osage is such a hard wood.
Yeah.
How do you, when you take these soft woods to make a bow, how do you harden them up? Because you can't, you don't leave them, right?
Some people will fire harden the belly on the whitewoods.
Really?
Yeah. They'll take that torch and heat it up.
Huh.
But most of, like I said, the yew is just a softer wood. You can dent it with your fingernail, but it's just you have to treat it a little bit different. Be more careful with it.
Don't throw it out of the tree.
Don't throw it out of the tree. They're boat arc. They're indestructible, basically.
Yeah, you could use that thing as a catapult.
Yeah. One of the things that when we first started was talking about the bow dimensions and stuff. And most of my Osage bows are 1 1/4 to 1 3/8, maybe a touch more width wise. And then, like JD said, he and I both crown the bellies, so they're radiused a bit. For a hickory bow or an ash bow, that bow is going to be wider, upwards of 2 inches wide, and that belly is going to be flat, just because of the characteristics of the wood, how it reacts under tension and compression.
Exactly.
Osage is really good in both tension and compression. Hickory is really good in tension, but the compression, if you crown it, it's going to crisall. It's going to fold those wood fibers over.
And it might be kind of hard to explain, but say the back of your bow, that is the tension, the back part bending. The belly is what's compression. It's compressing the belly. So
if you have too many layers on that crown, and you start to compress them together, they're going to start like just popping up, or
and it could be
separating at the.
It will actually fold on itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It cracks basically, but it's mainly the design, Tim, of the bow. Like hickory, whitewoods, like oak, ash, hickory, sycamore. That's whitewoods. That's called a whitewood because they basically all of them is you take the bark off, and that's the back of the bow. Where Osage, you take the bark off, then you have the sapwood you have to take off. Whereas a whitewood, the bark comes off. Just if it depends on the time of the year you cut it, but you take the bark off. That's the back.
You don't have to chase a ring.
You don't have to chase nothing.
Oh, really?
But it's
Well, that's
it's
intriguing.
not near. Most of them are not near as good in compression. Look at
No,
Tim.
nobody gave me one of those as an option.
No,
What about the kid bows? What did you call
Oh
them?
yeah.
rattan.
Oh, the
Rattan
Yeah,
bows.
it's actually a grass, comes from Asia.
How many of those did you give away last year?
Probably about 80.
Yeah.
It seemed like the number of kids were down last year. When the wildlife department had the wildlife expo, we'd give away 300 in a weekend.
Oh, wow.
In Oklahoma City?
Yeah, in Guthrie.
Guthrie.
Have
Yeah,
y'all
that's
ever been
right.
to? Have y'all ever been to that one?
I have been.
That
yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think they stopped it during COVID,
Yeah.
and it's
And it's
that
not,
it
it's
was
not
at
coming
the what was that arena?
Lazy.
Lazy-
Lazy. It was
yeah.
awesome. It was
Yep.
awesome. Yes.
Every kid that I saw running around with those things was grinning ear to ear.
Every kid that is there on Saturday gets a rattan bow.
Yeah. That was awesome.
We have given away somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 of those over the years. And JD's the one that brought that. Dean Torgs had, I guess, brought it to Mojam.
Well,
Or
yeah,
he was
Mojam, but
building-
he was mainly it was in Indiana, in Indianapolis. I can't think of that. Cloverdale. It was Cloverdale. He started a guy that me and Tommy know he's passed on now. Dean Torch is his name. He started making them out of hickory. Well, it was just too much work for him. So I don't know where he got the idea of this rattan. We would order them, or I would order them. They would be 9-foot poles, 1.5 inch diameter, and I would have them cut at 4.5 feet. And we'd get them in, and then
cut them in half.
they'd cut them in half.
Take off.
Just,
And
just
then-
for shipping.
Yeah. And then once we got them, being that they're about 1.5 inches round, we would cut them in the middle. So one 9-foot pole was going to make 4 bows. Yeah. So, and it's in rattan, it's a grass. You can string them up backwards. My son still got one from, I don't know,
It's 20 years old.
yeah,
at least.
but you can string them up backwards, and you can't break the bows. And that's what's so cool about them. The little kids can leave them strung up for years, and of course, you unstring them, they're going to look like they're strung, but they're still going to shoot. You know, and kids, little 5, 6 year olds, they can pull them back. We sand them, get them. We'll have the kid walk up there and pull the bow back. If it's still too heavy, we'll take it to the belt sander and sand it, and we're sanding the back of the bow. Not the belly, like on yours, the back. It's completely backwards.
Oh.
So we got the bows, the little kids' bows strung up, and we're hitting them on the belt sander, and then pull them and see if they bend, hand them to the kids. They take them over. They get a hand wrap, real neat looking camouflage handle wrap on it, and then they get 2 arrows, don't they?
3.
Is it 3 arrows? Yeah,
Oh, wow.
What,
Harper would be all in on that.
Oh, yeah. I was surprised. I honestly, I knew it was a family event, but I didn't expect to see that many kids.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It
to
brings
see.
them. It brings them out because they're free.
Yeah, but it sparks that interest.
well,
Oh,
it's
that's
the,
all. That's
the
what it's
future.
about.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
on that rattan, though, one of our members that I hunt with in Kansas, he got some and built 2 bows, heavy enough to hunt with. He killed a white-tailed doe in Kansas, and he killed a tom turkey.
You're kidding.
no kidding.
They were legal hunting weight, and he did it on purpose
How
so
big
that
a round was that?
it was still just 1.5 inches, 1 3/4
Just
wide,
didn't take anything off of it.
just not much.
Wow.
But we did it to let the parents know that these are weapons, even though it's a 5-year-old kid. Don't go shoot the cat
All right.
Or the chicken.
because they're
Hey,
going
let me tell you, those little
They're gonna
fiberglass ones with the suction cups on the end,
Yeah.
those hurt.
to. So
How do you know?
We used to have cowboy and Indian wars with those
Yeah.
things, and they leave a mark.
but
Yeah.
you can get that rattan if it's dense enough in a hunting weight bow. for an
Wow, no
adult.
kidding.
So.
Yeah, that was really refreshing to see that many kids at an
yeah.
outdoor event. Just doing
Yeah.
something outside.
Wasn't a lot of iPads running around, was
No,
there?
No.
no, not a one.
Yeah.
No.
It is
I had to
awesome.
wait for one kid to get done shooting at the hay bale because he was making me look bad. I'm like,
Oh,
why don't you
he
just go
was-
ahead and there and
Oh,
finish.
you were there, Tommy. That kid was on fire.
Yeah.
He put 2 arrows downrange, and I was like, I'm gonna wait a minute.
Wait till everybody's gone.
Yeah,
Oh, he couldn't have been. I know we've got him on video. He looked like he was maybe
6 or 7, something like that.
yeah, and I mean just he was hitting a pipe late. He was shooting. I don't know what was the first hay bale at 10 yards.
Yeah, 10 or 12 yards.
Yeah.
So he was shooting the next one would be 15, 20, and I guess he was there with his dad, and he was shooting just as good as his dad.
It's like, can I just go pull your arrows for you until you're done?
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, it was a fun event to see. You know, backing up to everything that we don't know about something that we love so much, and stepping back to the basics. And I don't know, honestly, if shooting traditional will make me a better archer with a compound bow.
I think it will.
I think it'll make you a better hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure. I can't wait to feel like I'm good enough shooting it to go. I don't want to just wound something, so I want to be
Well,
better
that's-
at my shot. But
That was
yeah,
kind
you
of
have-
when I saw your show and realized that you guys were from Tulsa. It's like I've always wanted to get a crew there to do this, and that's when I contacted you guys because to me it's a great show to walk from a fence post to something that you can shoot and then go harvest an animal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, shooting an adult doe is a trophy with that.
Well, that's my thought. I mean, I told you when I left the event, like that is my goal. If within 12 months of me building this thing from a fence post, I can shoot a mature doe at 10 yards or less out of a ground blind,
yeah.
I won.
Oh my gosh.
And
yes.
I mean, that
The rush.
thing, I love to eat deer meat just as much as the next guy, but that thing will taste way better.
Oh, absolutely. and then your next goal is what, Tommy? Did you officially kill one with everything made yourself?
I did.
You napped your own broadhead.
So when I was working, I'd attended a conference in just outside of Fredericksburg, Texas, and I'd gained access on the Pedernales River and picked up flint down there. And I bought some from another person in Austin. But that part of Texas is just good, all different kinds of really good napping rock. But I'd picked up this Pedernales flint, made the stone point, made an arrow, cedar shaft, but I finished it out. Self-nocks with water buffalo on the nocks.
Water buffalo. I mean,
Made
crazy.
a bow, and then went to Canada and harvested a black bear at 12 yards with a stone point.
I mean, that's
awesome.
freaking awesome.
And then I've killed coyotes and bobcats, deer, all with stone points.
JD?
No stone points. Snuffers. Snuffers and Zwicky.
That's
Wooden arrows, but no, I have a ton of points that guys has made me over the years. I mean, real good flint nappers from Michigan and Pennsylvania and all that. But I like looking at them. Yeah, that's Tommy's. That's a huge accomplishment.
absolutely.
Yes.
I don't.
And there's a lot of people that's done that, but
Yeah.
not as many. And was it one of the guys that was it Ralph?
Ralph Conrad.
Conrad used to save his points, and didn't he mark them on a plaque or something?
Yeah.
Oh, after
Well,
he
it was
kills
so
after he
freaking-
kills something with it.
When I met Ralph, we were at a bow shooting Pawnee, and I knew of him, but I hadn't actually met him. And when Oklahoma legalized, they dropped the requirement for a steel broadhead. It just had the dimension that you had to have. His goal,
From weight or like the
No.
size of-
Material.
Oh,
no,
okay.
it had to
okay.
be 7/8 wide and 1.25 inches long.
Okay.
But his goal was to be the first modern man from the indigenous people to harvest a deer in Payne County, and he was. He was the first one once it was
Okay.
legalized.
That's awesome.
It is is neat.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. I mean, and again, it's such a great, close-knit community, and everybody that I've been involved with. I used to go to Pennsylvania and Michigan, and they're just unbelievable guys. And this is traditional rendezvous and stuff. And I've got to know some very, very unbelievable bow makers. You know, I mean, there's so many out there though nowadays. I mean, probably not as many as in the heyday, maybe in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
It was
Bow makers.
bow makers, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's still some real. I mean, some of the better ones have passed on, but you know, there's some really good bow makers out there.
Do you think, I don't know, COVID did a lot of weird things with, you know, what people are into and trends. Do you feel like there is a trending up in people interested in this, or what do you see in that? Do you feel like there's more people being interested in it, or just?
I think COVID kind of really helped the outdoors because people kind of stayed in family groups and did more outdoors. I think we're starting to see a pickup of that. We've just had 2 events since COVID, so I expect it to grow. The show you guys did put a lot of publicity out there for us, not just in Oklahoma but on a national level, and I think those things will help build this and develop it.
Well, I would highly encourage anybody, even remotely interested, because like I've said, we had, before you called, it wasn't on our radar. You know, it wasn't something that we were looking at and decided we should go try it. We had no expectations, and if anybody had ever thought about it, is thinking about it, if you're listening to this, find one. If you're in Oklahoma, what's the website?
OKSelfbow.com.
OKSelfbow.com has all the information there. And it's for everybody.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and I don't want to forget. Not Casey.
Casey, yeah.
Oh yeah,
he's a big help.
One of those that he took a lot of time, stopped what he was doing several times, and came over and helped. So big shout out to him, and just the humility and the help that all you guys offer. It's a place that someone can go, not know anything, and not feel out of place.
Yeah, that's what
I think that's a tough thing to find nowadays, is to go to an event where everybody, you know, is striving to strut their tail feathers and show what they've done and what they know, and to go to an event like this. And I mean, you don't know, you don't know that the guy sitting next to you helping you with a bow has built 500 or how many you've made, or it's a guy that, you know, just built his first one last year, because they don't. I'm not saying you're not any better than the guy that just built his first one, but the attitude.
No, that's
your
what's
willingness to help, and the attitude is so much fun.
That's what's so cool about it. Is back in the 80s, my bows didn't look like yours. Ours was more primitive and all that. Well, you've got the jump on me and Tommy, because we helped give y'all some of our experience.
Sure.
You know, because don't make your tips 1 inch wide, and that was my worst.
I was afraid.
You wanted them to come down to a point where they just look better.
We were at Mojam,
sleek.
and JD was looking at one of my bows, and he's like, "Why is your handle so big? Why are your tips so wide? You need to knock these sharp edges off." And you know,
He never said that to me once.
what?
He was
doing it.
He was so patient.
Because I was
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's supposed to be a me bow, but his turned into a we bow.
Yeah.
No, the thing about what Tommy's talking about, if I might be constructive of certain things, but it's not not a criticism. It's more of wanting you to get, more make the bow look more finished instead of have square edges.
Everything you.
Well, and like the tips, making that narrower tip improves the efficiency of the bow.
It takes weight off the ends.
The bow's not having to move the mass of the tips, it's transferring that energy to an arrow. So all of that helped efficiency as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it was fun. You did a great job, not just saying, "Hey, you guys need to do this," but taking the time to explain why. Crowning the edges and softening those right angles so that it wouldn't separate. Things like that. Shave more.
Yeah.
Shave more. Why?
Take more
because
off.
you can't be able to draw that bow.
Yeah. You find out quick once you got a string
Yeah.
on it. You're like, oh, this is heavy. I'm like, well, it's just basically you're stalking the tiller, your draw weight. That's that's what you're doing, scraping it, taking it over there, pulling it back, seeing what it weighs. It's just fun.
We'll have our episode up online right now. It's still airing on Outdoor Channel. We'll have it up on YouTube, and I know there are other videos that you guys have on your on Facebook. You guys have a Facebook page too,
We
right?
have a Facebook page, and we actually had a young man from Indiana. One of our members' son does some filming,
Okay.
and he's really getting quite good. He's filmed with some big names all across the U.S. But he filmed several of the camps and our demos. And,
Nice.
And that way we'll have some instructional videos out on our website in the future. So
Very cool. It's I think it'd be good, to kind of show people. It's hard. We sort of hit on this earlier. It would be hard to watch a video and do it yourself because there's so many little things. In our episode, it was hard to kind of cram those days in.
Yeah.
A hunt's a little easier. It's like, we saw, come shoot to us in the studio. It's like we saw 32 deer that day, and so we got an early night sleep. But you can't just blow through that process.
Yeah.
So I think being there in person is key, and getting back to go to the website. All the information's there.
Yeah. Hands on. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. And from little kids to old people. I mean, it's a true family, multi-generational event.
it is.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate you guys, Tommy, first just calling and inviting us and sort of putting it on our radar, and we will definitely, we'll be there every year for the foreseeable future. I think we can't wait to get the rest of the team. Ashley was there filming.
Yeah.
She was chomping at the bit the whole time. She wants to go back and build one.
Yeah, she needs to build one.
So yeah, we'll have to probably hire a camera person because nobody's going to want to run camera next year.
Just bring them tripods.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Time lapse.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody's interested, then is website the best place to?
Website or on Facebook,
And what's the Facebook? Is look up just
Oklahoma Soft Bow Society or OJAM,
okay.
OJAM.
All right. Well, guys, Dusty, got any other pieces of advice for these guys?
Yeah. Come build a boat with us.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank
and
you guys for
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
we'll
thanks
see
for
you at the
inviting
next
me.
event.
All right.
Sounds great.
Appreciate it.
Get inside, outdoors hunting big game. I come alive before opening day. It's a twisted addiction that calls my name. I gotta get inside, outdoors hunting big game.
Keep up with IOTV on social media for all their latest news, tips, and giveaways.